The only thing that's similar between us and Stray is you play as a cat. And if you ask me, there isn't such thing as too many cat games. So,
I think just the niche of playing as an animal is so freeing. That started all the way back with Spyro, even
hmm
even before that time, and it is just such a fun thing to do.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I'm your host Carla Duke, and today I'm joined by Kostia Liakov and Sam Cable. They're both digital nomads and creators of an up-and-coming indie game called Copycat, an experience that explores feelings of loneliness and belonging. Today we'll be talking about their game, the struggle with indie dev while traveling, the benefits of making games with your partner, and more. A big thank you to Prismatic Studios for being our Season 6 sponsor. More on them later, but for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Zero to Play podcast. All right, welcome Kostia and Sam. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
thank you.
This is awesome. I mean, I've been talking to you both since I think the end of last year when I first came across your game. I kind of I forgot about you guys for a couple of months, and then we got back in touch, and it was awesome to see the progress in your game. It was awesome to see the devlogs that you'd posted since then. And I'm really grateful to have this conversation, just because there's, I mean, you're from New Zealand, Sam, is that correct? So there is some connection. You guys are based in Australia. I'm actually really grateful because it's very early. I think it's like 5:30 a.m. for you guys right now. So really grateful that you'd make the time to come on and chat with me now. And I've loved doing research into you both. You're kind of a power couple that are digital nomads and kind of travel a lot. Your Instagram's awesome. And I want to point out your captions on Instagram are awesome. They're like little poems or like little short stories. So who's responsible for doing that?
Yeah, that's me.
Sam thinks no one reads them, but it's very good to know that it's actually like people do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I maxed out the captions, so 2,200 characters is is the
Oh
limit.
my gosh, that is I did not realize there was a max to captions. But I think just that people don't usually use captions, but as soon as someone does, you kind of that becomes the experience of those posts. You know, you go to the post in order to read the story. It's very cool. I could tell the creativity is coming through. So I've got a bunch of really exciting questions about your lifestyle, why you got into indie dev, about Copycat, and what the story is behind that, and what your motivations are. So we're just going to kind of go through a bunch of these interesting questions, and just to kick it off, I just thought an interesting first question was. Why you've decided to make Copycat a 4-hour narrative experience. I think talking about the length of a game is an interesting topic when things like the music industry, you have a typical song is about 2 minutes long, a typical movie is about like 2 hours long, and talking about what a typical game is a very kind of unknown, and it's one kind of topic that I love to talk to people about. So why did you choose 4 hours for the length of your experience?
That's a great question. I think the reasons behind this choice mostly lie in the size of our team. There are just two of us, and it's just a matter of resource. We probably would take around 10 years if we wanted to do something longer than that. But also, we are building game that is heavy narrative driven. So it's all about the narrative, and we don't want to stretch it unnecessarily too long and sacrifice the storytelling, sacrifice the intensity of it. So we think 4 hour is still an approximation, but we still think this is how long it would take to enjoy the game.
Yeah, and in your last devlog, you mentioned that the demo was going to showcase just Act One, and based on that, I'm assuming there's going to be like a 3-act structure to the game. Is that correct? So there's a lot of film influence I feel in this game. So um, talk to me about why you decided to go for like a 3-act structure. Is that yeah, like what was the thought behind that?
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I graduated my master's in screenwriting, and so that's been really drilled into me at film school. I wanted to make a piece of content that had a transformative narrative, and 3-act structure felt like a really good fit. It's our first crack into the gaming world, and we wanted to bring our strengths as filmmakers to the game.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I that's what I love about games is that it's kind of a merger of so many different mediums, and I love that you're heavily kind of leaning on the film side and creating an emotional experience. And I have a few questions about kind of Copycat and what the challenges are of creating like a narrative. An emotional experience in like an action-based medium of games, which I'll ask you about later, but I want to talk a bit more about your careers and kind of personal journeys first. And I just want to congratulate you both on winning Young Creatives of the Year and a bunch of other awards. I assume you both won those awards. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the awards we listed were the awards we won as a team.
Yeah.
We still have a bunch of awards we won separately in Australia and internationally, but those were our proudest ones.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I guess my question from that was, what does creativity mean to you? And I'd love to ask you both kind of individually, like, what is being creative to you?
Yeah, that's freedom. It's the ability to channel, I think, your inner child. We have this, I think, proud and instinctual avenue to just connect with people. And I think that by having an ability to just play content that just awakens that inner child it's just so cathartic, and it's just something we love to do. And so creativity is a big passion of ours.
Yeah, for me, it's self-expression, and as Sam said, it almost gives us a permission to be a child without anyone like, Kostia, you're 31 years old. What are you doing? Like, I'm being creative. Oh, okay. So it's just this little thing in our life that just lets us express how we feel and have fun.
Mhm. Yeah, and talking a bit more about your career. So the way I understand is you both work in advertising during the day, and then you work on your indie game in the evening. Could you talk a bit about what a spoonful of wonder is, and what this whole kind of project is, if that is what you're currently like your current full time jobs are?
Absolutely. Spoonful of Wonder is a collective that we are starting and we're working on. It's not related to advertising, but as a collective, we want to start to cover most of our creative projects and our storytelling. But on a day to day basis, we work in advertising pretty much to pay the bills while we're working on the game, to finance it and afford our lifestyle.
Mhm.
Yeah, and what we normally do on the day-to-day basis, it can be as simple as writing 100 headlines to make sure the one really pops on the billboard. And that sort of endurance and tenacity has really passed over into the game, and knowing that you just need to put in a lot of love and a lot of patience, because eventually you'll get the output you're after.
Yeah, we work
Mhm.
as a creative team in one of the big advertising agencies,
Mhm.
and it's been a really fun journey. We've been doing advertising before we met each other, and we've been doing it for like last 10 years. And we think it's a great day job to have while working on a game because it still keeps you creative, it still keeps you thinking, keeps your juices flowing. So you're always on and you learn lots of complementary skills that you can use in game development, like even when it comes to marketing and other things.
And so Kostia deals with all the art. You make everything look beautiful, don't
Yes,
you?
my title is Senior Art Director. I'm responsible for the visual component of ads, and Sam's title is Senior Copywriter, and she is responsible for the stories and writing and lots of other beautiful things that I may not notice.
Yeah, so we work in harmony, so a bit like Batman and Robin.
Yeah, I love that. So when it comes to the to indie dev, who does the programming? Because I see you both kind of work on the game design together, but I feel like the programming is a lot of the backbone of the work. So where does that responsibility fall?
It's mostly on my shoulders to do programming, and we do lots of concepting and level design and storytelling together. Sam concentrates, I'll let her talk more on the story and other aspects, and I do lifting in terms of programming and graphics.
Yeah. Have you had to learn Unity for this project, or has that been something that you've been kind of chipping away at for a while?
Yeah, it's our first time using Unity.
Yeah.
So it was almost like we started learning it as we started the project. And I think this is the way we learn things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we
Yeah.
just give it a crack and see what happens.
It's like
Yeah.
rather than spending years of learning, we come up with an idea and then we learn elements of software as we go, as we develop it. It just keeps us more motivated because it's really easy to lose
Mm,
motivation when you do another tutorial for,
mm.
like, I don't know, another survival Minecraft style game. It's like there's so many of them. So we need a big project to keep us going. And they say like your first game probably should be super simple, super basic, just make it happen.
Mm.
But I know we probably would have abandoned it if that was the case, like in a week. So we needed to set ourselves a challenge.
Yeah, I mean the game looks awesome. The graphics look great. It's a real unique perspective to be kind of the perspective of a cat or a jaguar or whatever is in the dream sequence. And the interactions look nice and simple and minimal and very it definitely fits in that indie game genre. So that's what made me really excited. What particularly made me excited is that you're exploring themes of loneliness and belonging, and I think that that's really powerful. Just when it comes to games, games are most generally action based, adventure, and I feel like having that kind of narrative crossover is I think people would probably focus on film and storytelling um, for those kinds of themes, and I think those exist in some games out there, but it's definitely the minority. So I guess why did you decide that you wanted to make a game that explored these themes about loneliness and things like that? Like why? What was the inception? Why is that what is motivating you to make this game?
Yeah, Carl, such a great question. It all started at when COVID happened. We lost all our jobs. We ended up moving states. We came back home to live with my family. And then we set out on this, I guess, remote kind of work. And loneliness was something that always crept into what we did every day. We didn't quite feel like we belonged anywhere. And this transient lifestyle really fed into the game. We wanted to create a subject matter that explored that. The Copycat also explores the meaning of home, and we wanted to give our audience an opportunity to reflect on what they thought the meaning of home was. Home's been such a loose terminology, especially what's happening in Ukraine.
Mm,
There's lots of relocation going on, and I think from both sides of experiences, Ukraine, Sam was born in Christchurch. He also
mm.
experienced a little bit of that, and us moving around and living this lifestyle just inspired us to tell the story. And yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And that is actually really powerful. Has the game changed a lot based on the events that have happened in the last 6 months? Like, has that really fed into the kind of the development of the game and the themes, or has it been pretty core? Has it just kind of enhanced what you're already building?
I think rather the second one,
Mm,
it enhanced, and I think we started going deeper into the relationship, didn't we?
Yeah. Um, it's always the theme's always been really important to us driving the story forward. It's almost like that roadmap that allows it to continue. What we started to uncover was the theme of um, not real the theme that was related to working out the true meaning of home. And so we found out that it's not really who you're with or where the Wi-Fi connects automatically, or even if your house is in the same location over time, but it's instead what you bring to home. And so that's just been really pivotal as we drive forward.
Yeah, and it evolved a lot, and we started digging deeper into the relationship between Kat and Olive, the owner.
hmm
Yeah, it's
And
a really like intimate, warm, magical experience as you kind of watch these two characters try to fill each other up and mend each other's hearts because they're broken in some way.
Wow, that's so sweet. It's so sweet, and I just love that you're exploring this in the setting of a game. I'd love to know: are there any specific game mechanics that you are using to help push these themes forward? Because when it comes to games and storytelling, a lot of the time it's cutscenes or dialogue that the kind of storytelling happens, but there's an interesting possibility to use game mechanics to inform those themes as well. I'm just wondering if you've explored any, like for example, when you have to press like the two buttons to get the toilet paper to like unravel, like that's kind of a funny game mechanic, but are there any ways that you've explored the themes using like different mini games or different experiences in the game?
Yeah, a really great example of a game that does that well is Florence.
Okay,
Like it just oozes love no matter what part of the game, and we're trying to do that in our game setting.
Yeah,
awesome.
and think our our main mechanics obviously based around storytelling and exploration.
Hmm.
And we call some of them elements of wonder, as you may have seen on our YouTube. So there are a few ways we deliver this story to people. And because there are challenges in terms of being a cat. So you can't really talk or shouldn't really understand human language or stuff like that. So we had to come up with few interesting mechanics to deliver the story outside of your standard exploration and mini games gameplay. So there is an unreliable narrator, kind of like in what you may have seen in Stanley's Parable.
Hmm.
There are some navigational help in terms of smell lines that help you visualize the superior sense of smell cassette and lots of other elements that
Yeah,
can help us.
another really good one is just the instinct. So we have a lot of pop-ups like semi non-diegetic floating, I guess, text that
Hmm.
appear that almost work as your inner voice as the cat.
And they evolve as you move. Also, as you mentioned, Jaguar is the dream sequence, and that's a way we can show how our character reflects on what happened in the day before, and that's the dream sequence. And depending of the events, depending on the story, you may feel great, and you just like giant jaguar running around the fields or this forest hunting for your prey. Or if you had a bad day, you've been hunted, maybe you've been chased by like a giant rabbit, or lots of things can happen in the
I
dream
love
world.
that. I've never heard of that before, and I think that's such an incredible way to, yeah, to just tell a story in an interactive way, and that's really exciting. And I can't wait to just kind of play through that experience and just see how I feel and see how I think the cat feels, and then how it actually gets reflected. That's awesome, and that's exactly the kind of creative those the creative decisions that get me really excited about the future of games and just the possibility of using games as a way to talk about these really serious and powerful themes that people kind of need to experience in order to get through or like understand themselves better. Things like the word the human condition, I feel like has come a lot in my path in film. Do you feel like exploring the human condition is something you're trying to do with this game? Is that a term that you've often come across or used?
Yeah, that term's really special because it makes people want to be better humans. And so if we create an experience and then after the game, people can turn to their pet or their loved one and give them a cuddle, we feel we've done our job well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I was wondering how successful you would want this project to be, and I'd love to know. You've been in development for this game for over a year now, and it's currently in its pre-alpha stage. You have a demo that you're planning to release end of this year. What are you kind of hoping comes out of this? Are you hoping to go full-time indie, or pursue this, or are you kind of keeping it within this kind of bubble of hobby and just kind of exploring different thoughts? Yeah, I'd love to know like how serious you're wanting to take it.
Absolutely, going full-time indie would be the dream. We really enjoy doing this, and we have obviously high hopes but low expectations. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. So we're not giving up our advertising jobs just yet. We will concentrate on the game. We want to do the best project we can. We want to be proud of it, and we'll see what happens. If that will allow us to develop games more and go full time, we'll be more than happy to do that. Absolutely.
Success for us would be able to actually give a portion of the funds we raise back to an animal charity. That for us would be, I guess, the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And working together, we are not limiting ourselves to the game world. We want to create a collective of storytellers, be it short films, animations, games. We want to tell stories and then define what format is the best for any specific story to tell. So
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really and I guess combining your surrounding yourself with other creatives from different industries will only help, people within their medium. People, humans communicating that are creative is all you need, I think, to do better art and do better work. So
So
that's
I gotta say, like, it's so juicy being in the indie game world. It's so fun, and I think our next project will probably be a game.
we love games.
This episode of the Zero to Play podcast is brought to you by Prismatic Studios. Prismatic Studios is an Unreal Engine technical consultancy based in Auckland, New Zealand, focusing on development services for clients that need support prototyping, implementing and testing features, or adding development resources to existing projects. With their expertise using Unreal Engine, they can help consult and work alongside your teams to avoid common pitfalls that are so common in software and game development these days. Reach out to them today for a quote or free consultation. A link to their website can be found in the description below. Back to the show. Are there any games, you mentioned Florence, are there any other games that you feel inspired by, or that you kind of think of when you think of the kind of experience that you, not experience in terms of similar themes, but in terms of how immersed you got into an indie or like game experience?
Yeah, it's funny because we come from the backgrounds that are completely different and we both enjoy very different games. I'm being Ukrainian. I play CSGO, like most of my time. And being busy at work, having not much time playing like competitive online shooters or like stuff like that is what I am inspired by. And Sam
I play Pokemon
on the Switch.
and Spyro, so I'm like a casual retro player.
Pokemon shooter is on the way. That's what I'm getting.
But I guess something we both can bond over and enjoy is these indie game experiences. We love shorter ones that we can play over a weekend. What Remains of Edith Finch is a really good example because you do get immersed in the game. Tonally, it's a little bit different, but it really leans into the story and just has some such strong drivers. Firewatch is another massive one. Stanley Parable was a great one.
Life is Strange with the choices and the narrative branchings also a big influence. Yeah, so you see where it's headed. Like the storytelling, they all have certain pace. They also all have certain style about them, which we don't mind exploring. Even one of the most recent ones, The Road 96, was a very interesting experience. Played on Switch and PC.
I think the one commonality of all these games is you can cuddle up on the couch and play them. And so that's what we're looking for. When it's overcast and you've got a nice cup of tea, we want people playing our game.
Yeah, they're not too intense, It's not like trying to win CSGO match or anything like that. We'll say they're more casual. They're more casual and story driven, yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that, but it's not a mobile game where it's, hyper casual and it's like there's a story, it's narrative, but it's easy. I really like that genre and think, and my wife isn't a gamer, but I'm always on the lookout for little indie games and experiences that we can play together. And that's usually experiences that have minimal UI, where it's built to be entertaining to watch as well as play. And there's so many experiences I feel that are unexplored, and this is exactly the kind of thing that I want to use to test to see if we can bond over an experience like that. Yeah. Talking about Unity and using Unity to make the game, I'd love to know if there's anything you feel is lacking, or anything that you feel that you wish existed within the game engine that would make you expressing yourself in this medium easier.
I wish there was a button that you press and it finishes the game for you. Unity has been a great tool. It has amazing capabilities. It's rather intuitive to work with when you have a bit of experience in 3D software. It has amazing asset store, and every time I get stuck, I can get inspiration from there or save myself months of modeling by, buying some props or finding the script I need. Because also I don't really know coding, neither does Sam. So Unity offers very powerful visual scripting, which has been a life changer for us and definitely saved us again months and months of work. Because we both are creative and visual people,
Mm.
and for me, it makes so much sense when I see all my scripts built in little nodes, and I can rearrange them. I can kind of make them as messy as my computer's desktop. It's all just like makes a lot of sense when I see it work. And there are lots of tutorials, there are lots of resources available. So I'm very happy with the software. So
Mm.
like, it doesn't have the flashy graphics of Unreal Engine 5, but for the game we're building and for the size of the team, I don't think we'll be able to take full advantage of that anyways. So it just allows us to make a nice game, make sure it runs on different platforms.
Yeah, that's what I love about the just the change, the ease of use of game engines in the last 5-10 years with things like visual scripting, because it lets creatives like yourselves able to express yourself through a game where before, it was the barrier to entry was incredibly high. And I still feel like there's a lot of work to be done to make a game engine feel a lot more like Photoshop when it comes to just throwing things together. But it's awesome that you've gotten this far already, and the demos and the devlogs that I see, the game looks playable. It looks like there's an experience. It looks like there's a story being told. So I feel like you've succeeded in kind of breaking through that barrier with the current technology, which is really cool.
Thank you.
Um, I'd love to know if Dawn the cat, who's the kind of main character in Copycat, was inspired by any true stories. I assume that you guys are cat lovers, and I've seen cats in some photos. But yeah, is there any truth behind the story, or is it more just kind of exploring the themes that you wanted to use a cat for?
No, as you said, we love animals and we love cats, and we've had a couple of cat play testers along the way who we hope enjoy the game as much as we enjoy watching them watch the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely a story floating around that the person my friends lost their cat, and then they found their cat a week later. They brought that cat home, and then a couple of days later, a second cat came home that looked exactly like their cat, and they had two animals
Yeah.
just the same. We thought that was quite a funny scenario just to base something a bit more meaningful on top of it. And I guess in grief, and getting to a bit more of a serious note, when we are distressed, people minds work in such interesting ways, and we want the animal to be the exact pet that we had before. And so
Mm.
I think it's was just an interesting way to explore that, I guess, motif of grief and what happens when you are not 100%. And I guess
Yeah.
that's what happens with Olive, our human character. She's not well, and so when the cat does go missing and a replacement cat comes onto her door, she has to make a couple of decisions, and you get left outside.
Yeah. Oh, that's so. It's such immediately you just kind of feel for the cat, and just but you understand. It's very relatable. I think that's what I really like about it. It's relatable. We've all, well, any kind of pet owner, I think's had those moments where someone's gone missing, or you feel like you accidentally left the back door open or something, and you're scared that something has happened. That's me personally with my dogs, but it's awesome, and I think having relatable stories is something that relatable games. I think that's a really cool angle to explore, just because games as a medium I think are used to create worlds that are fantasy and that you can't get in real life. But then there's the other extreme where it's incredibly relatable, and you're interacting in an environment that is very familiar to you. And is that something that you've both been aware of, is leaning into that relatability for the player?
Absolutely, and we want the story to be relatable. After all, we call ourselves storytellers building a game, not game makers who are trying to tell the story. And
Hmm.
we think there are two levels to Copycat. One is beautiful story that lets you reflect, lets you slow down and think about your life and your pets and your choices. And other level is being a cat, because that's where the fun part is as well.
Just
Um,
knocking stuff off the table
Yeah, yeah.
and just jumping in a box
you
just because you
yes,
can.
yes, you cannot imagine how many comments on our devlog we had, like just people are asking us, would I be able to drop stuff off the shelf? Would I be able to do the cat? So we had to let people be the cat.
Yeah, and something that we love is that two-way communication that we are getting from YouTube.
Mm,
Um, People wanted to be able to pick the own color of their cat. We originally just started with one color, and so we've
mm,
been able to tweak it, and so we have that experience. Something else that people really love is the opportunity to be a cat owner or a pet owner again for the very first time. And
mm,
so, just that joy of bringing in a small animal, trying to
mm.
connect with it not being so brave, and you having to work really, really hard. And so, we're really keeping that experience really pure and just accessible again for anyone, even if they're pets, well into adulthood.
That's beautiful. I love that. And yeah, like you said, choosing a pet from a like a hospice or like a pound, or something, wherever you get your animal from. That's usually something you only do maybe once or twice in your life. So wanting to recreate that and really respecting that process is really beautiful. You mentioned the fun, and pushing objects off shelves, and getting into boxes, and how creating fun experiences is important. And I do feel like that's what games do really well, is creating entertainment through fun and play. What's your but obviously you mentioned your storytellers and then game devs. What's your kind of balance between how fun you make the experience to how much you lean into the storytelling? Is that kind of a 50-50 split, or is there one that you feel like is more important that you deliver to the player?
Yeah, it's a balance we're still trying to find. I
Mm,
think we have scenes that more story driven, and we have more fun, silly things that are rather based around being a cat or exploration or yeah.
Yeah, we had a really interesting scenario the other day where you've just explored the house on your own and you've been knocking stuff over, but we've got Olive sitting on the couch and she's not interacting. And so we had to make the active choice to Olive to be outside. So you had the freedom as the cat to do all the silly things. And it wasn't just you as the player choosing to do the silly things, it was you
mm,
as a mischievous cat actually making the choices. And as long as it feels authentic for the character, then we've got the wriggle room to, I guess, get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, there was this moment when I was playtesting and our character, our human, sits on the couch, like watching TV, and the interaction happens when you approach her, when you get close enough. But I was like, Sam, watch me push this vase across the floor right in front of her, and like just testing all this like rigid body elements and just creating total mess with human not reacting to it.
And that's
yeah.
Felt
fun.
it was
It's,
funny.
but at the same time, we just can't do that because it takes away all the hard work and all the story beats up to that point.
Yeah.
And so we just have to think of really clever and intelligent solutions as to not get in that point
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, what I took away from that is the importance of playtesting as well, and just kind of playing through the experiences. How often do you do that, and what do those kind of playtesting sessions look like? Is it just showing kind of little things that you've created?
There are two different ones. Like one is as a playtest as I go in terms of building, and I think I'm doing it way more than I should. I'm probably spend half of my work time just running around, and sounds like looking at me like, "What are you doing?" I'm testing. I'm testing this jump mechanic. I'm doing a test. But I think it's important. It kind of allows us to make sure a game is rather better polished when it comes to testing with other people. But we
Mm.
also have sessions with our friends and families and people contributing to our project where we invite them to play.
Yeah, they always find the bugs.
Yeah.
They always find themselves in a position where they're not supposed to be in and they can't get out, and it's very embarrassing.
Sam's sister, she's very keen gamer, and we let her try Copycat one of the levels. And I think we're gonna hire her to just find all the sneaky spots where you can get stuck on the level. Because the first thing she did was not following the narrative. She's like, "What? Can I jump behind this table and get like completely stuck inside the wall or something like that?" So it is very important, and we
I
can
think
do
I
more.
think you're asking for by making a game that you play the role of a cat. I think when the demo comes out, you'll probably find a lot of people just exploring the environment, which is such a cool like if you can immerse your player into this environment, they're going to be curious and they want to go to every shelf and every corner. So yeah, there would probably definitely be a big need for polish and finding those edge cases, especially yeah, as a cat wandering a house alone.
Absolutely.
I I'd love to ask a question about what. So one thing that I think you've both done really well is being aware of the marketing of the game, and this is from knowing what the themes are, knowing what the title of the game is. Just Copycat is a really easy to remember, and it ties into the themes in the story. Even your devlogs, I feel like you both do an incredible job of marketing the game, and that's something that a lot of indie devs struggle with. I think your advertising background and your kind of passion for storytelling has helped with that. And a lot of indie game devs have just, that's the thing that they've been passionate about since they were kids, and just kind of exploring that. And then they get to a stage where they want to create a fully fledged game. Um, and if there was someone, well, there's a bunch of people out there, but for those people, I'd love to know what advice you'd give to them for marketing an indie game, and what kind of um, lessons you've learned or tips that you would give to someone that doesn't have any experience in advertising or branding or storytelling. Like what advice would you give to someone like just starting out wanting to ship their game?
I guess it's a blessing and a curse that we are in advertising. So we have been doing ads for different brands, like anything you can imagine, for the last 10 years. And it definitely helped us understand the marketing better. Even though marketing video game is still very different from selling the credit cards or cereal or dog food. It's just different market, different channels. You can't go make a giant billboard that says play Copycat. But it's about learning the audience.
Mm,
And what I see a lot on social networks, what I see a lot on Reddit and all the game dev, indie dev communities, that there are lots of very talented, very passionate people, and they're building their games. And lots of people complain about not understanding marketing, but we don't think it's that complex to begin with. You obviously don't need to create this like $1 million ad campaign, but being public, being there, showcasing your game is a very important one. Just as soon as you have something nice, as soon as you have something to show, start posting it on socials. Get a Twitter, um, create a community on Reddit, get a Discord if that's kind of the game you're building. You know, experiment, devlog. You can create like Instagram, TikTok, wherever you think your audience is. And also, just based on advertising, good product is easier to sell. And I'm not saying our game's any good; it's not ready yet. But find for people who want to market their game, the most important thing is to find the point of difference. Find something that makes their game unique, and as soon as you have that element, it's like this is what makes my game different from 100 other games on Reddit. That's the moment you can use, and that's where you can start successfully marketing again.
Yeah, and find a
Mhm.
platform that you love. So if you love YouTube, stick to that, do that really well. Don't get too overwhelmed with having 7 other platforms out there. Just do that one to the best of your ability and use it almost as a, don't make your homework, use it more as a, like a diary or something you can look back on and be like, oh, 3 months, ago, I was working on this and look how far I've come. Because once you get some personal gratification from it, it makes it a lot easier for other people to be interested in your journey too.
I think that's a really good point to not make it feel like work. Because as soon as you force yourself to do it, you kind of lose touch of where the passion is. Whereas doing it, making it like a diary, I think it's a really good piece of advice. Which the content might look the same in the end. It's just one is more casual and one is very kind of thought over and in most cases overthought. Which is that's really cool. I I watched your latest devlog where you talked about the 5 Ws for what your game is, and I think that's just like a great exercise for any indie dev to do. Could you explain what the 5 Ws are and maybe quickly what those 5 Ws are for Copycat?
Of course. So, who, what, where, why? We just wanted something really simple and easy that would help ground us and allow us to really fine tune, I guess, why we're doing this and how we can get our game out into the world.
It was a great structure to plan our demo as well that we
Hmm.
hope to release in October. So it's a bit of a marketing thing again,
Hmm.
coming back to the marketing, and it helps us kind of understand our target audience, understand what we want, understand what people looking for in the game, and make sure we fine tune the experience, marketing, deliverables,
Yeah.
make everything work.
So we'll go through it really quickly. So who's
Hmm.
it for? Pet lovers, casual gamers, people who love animals
Yeah.
and want a beautiful cathartic experience.
So where I think the second W is
Who, what?
what.
What we're creating, that was for the demo. So we're looking
Yeah.
for a 45-minute demo
Yeah.
that was linear and just showcased the best of our story.
Where is probably we want to create a game for PC and consoles. For now, we're concentrating on PC, and then we're gonna port it to other platforms because PC master race.
The next one was when,
Yeah,
and that's October. That's our first, I guess, internal deadline to get
October
out.
for October for demo for the first act, and probably mid next year for the full game, depending.
Hmm.
And
Why?
why? Why?
Why are we doing this?
Why? Why are you doing this?
We're, some part of us, we can't go to sleep unless we get the story out, and it's burning deep within us, and it's just a really important thing for us to do.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. We always do some side projects. We always do something. So that's just what we do, and that's what we love doing. That's some people spend hours in gym every time after work. Some people go party. Some people binge Netflix. We make games. That's our hobby.
Yeah. I love it. No, and even just it's marketing on one side, but at the other side, it's a very personal exercise that helps you answer those questions for yourself and where that motivation comes from, and having that deadline that you're working towards. It's a really good exercise. Are there any other exercises or kind of marketing ways of kind of chopping up your project that help sell it or help describe it? Is there anything else that that you've maybe taken from the advertising industry that you think would be valuable for indie devs to be aware of?
I think the main thing we take from advertising industry is a benefit, or what's the marketing term? The unique selling thing.
USP.
USP. You see,
Okay, can
U-
you explain that?
USP, unique selling proposition.
and that's
Okay,
the
cool.
main thing I take from marketing, is that be different, make something that people want. Again, good product is easier to sell, so make it good. That's the main one, and just exposure, just be out there, because people not gonna play a game if they never heard of it. So
Hmm.
gonna find a way to help people find out about your product.
Hmm.
And advertising in general has been a great industry in terms of meeting people. Like lots of our collaborators who work with are people we met working in the agencies or film school. So because advertising is like the agencies, the creative teams are this like bunch of very talented people there who know lots of complementary skills, and they may do marketing on day-to-day basis, but lots of people in creative teams, they do motion design, they do 3ds, they do Photoshop, writing, lots of, even like go into like search engine optimization, like we can get some use of that. So that's very resourceful field to work as a day job.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that is, it goes back to, I think, the motivations of wanting to make this collective and just have all these minds kind of together in the same place, which is awesome. A couple questions. Our time's almost out, and I'd love to know, if you did a lot of research before you started development. Did you kind of look on the market for another game where you played as a cat, or games that explored loneliness? Was there a lot of, like, was there a segment of research that you did, or did you just kind of let your self motivation kind of lead you through that process?
It was very instinctual. So
Mhm.
it came very organically. We wanted to create a game that we wanted to play, but also was achievable because
Mhm.
we were quite naive, but also understood it was going to be our first game. We wanted to make something snackable, something that we could then put in our portfolio and be really proud and have the world experience it and enjoy it as much as we did.
There are a few
Mhm.
games we mentioned before that inspire us story wise. And when we started Copycat, the niche of playing as a household pet was rather unexplored. I think
Mhm.
somewhere halfway, Stray was announced.
Mhm.
So that was an interesting experience, kind of made me worry a little bit. I was like, oh my god, this like third person view, you play as a cat, are we like too similar? But then I thought the only thing that's similar between us and Stray is you play as a cat. And if you ask me, there isn't such thing as too many cat games. So,
I think just the niche of playing as an animal is so freeing. That started all the way back with Spyro, even
Mhm.
even before that time, and it is just such a fun thing to do. And I definitely think we'll have a lot of interest in people just interested in the cat simulation side
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last question I had was: are you hoping to find a publisher with the demo that you put out? Is that a path that you want to pursue? What are your thoughts on publishers and kind of partnering with someone?
We've been really humbled to receive a couple of publishing offers so far, but we're just taking our time. We're not in any rush. We want to make the best project possible. But where publishers come in handy is especially if we're wanting to enter a new market that we wouldn't have the confidence to enter, for example, China, and having the opportunity for it to be translated in different languages and dialects. That's where publishing brings a lot of value.
and even market there. As Sam said, it's our very first project, so it's very important for us to maintain this creative integrity and make the project we want to make, even if self-publishing may potentially bring us less profit from the game. It's very important for us to do the best job we can without any third-party influence and make sure we create the game like we always want to.
Yeah, so we're just taking our time, and we're exploring other avenues like funding from government initiatives. That's another good way. If not, we're just taking it easy and putting all our skills to use, and we'll make a beautiful product at the end of the day, regardless.
Yeah, I love that you've put thought into it. It's a very mature answer, very professional view, and I commend you for that. You know, that the indie space is, you know, a lot of people pursue passion projects, but the imbalance is with the kind of reality of the situation, and I feel like you both together form a really great team, a really great perspective and kind of realistic view while developing a really creative and heartfelt project, which I love to see. So really commend you for that. I really appreciate you just answering my tirade of questions from all angles and just kind of satisfying my curiosity with your project. So thank you so much for being so open and being so kind. And thank you for your time. I want if anyone listening wants to follow you guys, where can they follow you, or where would you like them to go other than wish listing on Steam, obviously, the Copycat game? Where else can they find you online?
I think the channels where we're most active at are our YouTube and
Hmm.
our devlogs. Please jump in, say hi. We always there replying to people, and also follow us on Twitter. That's where I think Carl found us. We also quite active on Twitter, so these are our two main communication channels where we'd be more than happy to hear from anyone.
And big shout out to Zero to Play.
Yeah, well, you don't need to shout this out because anyone who's gotten this far in the podcast is a diehard fan anyway. So and doesn't need to help promote it. But thank you. I'll have all those links in the description below for anyone that just wants to click through and find out more. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. And last question just before we head off is what's one piece of advice, you know, just a couple words or a sentence that you'd like to give to other indie devs wanting to pursue a project with a specific theme that they want to put onto the market?
Yeah.
I think one from me would be it's super simple, but you gotta start doing it. You don't have to have perfect plan. You don't have to overthink it. You start it. The hardest thing is to start, and once you're at it, it will evolve. It will become what it wants to become. You know, let the game become what it wants to be, and just start doing it. And that's the biggest thing. Never don't doubt yourself. Software these days is so easy. It's everyone can make a game these days. Just do it.
Yeah, and in terms of theme, best thing, have a little post-it note with the word up and stick it next to your computer. Don't stray too far from it because the more ways you can explore the same thing, the more richness and love you're going to give to it, and the better output of the game you're going to have.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. And thanks for your time again, and have a good rest of your day.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Zero to Play podcast. We hope you learned something about game development, the games industry as a whole, or the future of games. Follow us on Twitter at Zero to Play and let us know what you found valuable. Take care and see you in the next episode.